When you stop asking people, do they believe in me, and start asking yourself, do I believe in me? That's when the real work starts. Because when you trust yourself, when you trust yourself to fail and recover in that failure, when you trust yourself to feel and then regulate, and when you trust yourself that when you fall, you'll get back up, that fear loses its power. When you don't need to perform anymore, when you don't have to prove anything to anyone anymore, that's when you start to be grounded. My challenge, everybody, is when you look in the mirror, don't ask yourself if you look confident. Ask yourself if you're living in alignment to your values. Ask yourself if you're honoring your values and if you're keeping your word to yourself. And that's where real confidence lives. Not in the image, it's in integrity. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Through the Mirror. Now, most of us were never taught how to build real confidence. We learned how to perform, how to hide, how to survive. So we learned to look strong instead of becoming strong. Today, we're stepping through the mirror to talk about what real self-confidence actually is and how to build it from the inside out. Now, what is confidence? I would say confidence, self-confidence isn't something you just discover one day. It isn't motivation, it isn't hype, and it isn't pretending you're fearless. Real confidence is earned trust in yourself. It's what happens when your words match your actions. You keep promises to yourself. You face discomfort instead of avoiding it, and you learn that you can survive failure. Confidence grows from evidence, not affirmation. And I think we need to touch on what's the opposite of this. What's this false self-confidence that is going around society? And false confidence is needing to look strong instead of being strong. It's needing to appear successful instead of becoming competent. It's needing validation more than growth. It's performance, image management, and it's not identity. And it's so common today because our modern society rewards your appearance over substance. Through social media, you have curated highlight reels of your life. You brand yourself. You hide your struggles. You monetize a perception of confidence. So people inherently learn to look confident first and then just figure it out later. And a lot of people even learn this from their parents when it's like, oh, we got to put on this show for everybody, but hide the family problems. Don't, look like we have it all together. But, a lot of people don't do that second part of figuring it out and doing the work. So I really want to touch on some roots of this false confidence before we get into the real self-confidence, so you can identify the parts that need worked on. I'd say the first core root of false confidence is shame. You're not enough, so you'll just act like you are, but you're not really confident in it, and you have shame. You have fear of being exposed. If they see the real you, you'll just get rejection. And then the addiction of comparison. I'm only okay if I'm doing better than somebody else. And I'd say the last core root of this false confidence is unprocessed trauma. When you learn that weakness isn't safe, so you put on armor. And for the confidence side, I'd say there's really three pillars of real confidence. And number one is competence. You get confident by getting better, by practice, study, failing, refining yourself, repeating those things, and mastery in something creates confidence. There's no shortcuts to confidence. Number two on that is integrity. You need to do what you say you'll do, even when no one sees it, especially when nobody sees it. You hold yourself accountable because self-respect is the foundation of confidence. And then the last pillar of real confidence is emotional regulation. Confident people are not fearless. They're emotionally stable. They can feel anxiety without running. They can feel shame without collapsing. They can take criticism without exploding, and they can sit with their own discomfort and still stay grounded in who they are. And all these things really start building that self-confidence and trust within yourself. And that has to be earned, just like working out. You know, you don't, a bodybuilder doesn't just, even if they're taking steroids and stuff, they don't just achieve that figure real quick. There still is an earned, hard, grueling process, and that includes confidence.
Mhm.
Is there anything you would like to
Yeah,
add?
yeah. I think self-confidence is a hard one for a lot of people because you want safety, and it even becomes an unconscious habit to outsource those things when you're trusting yourself, when you either have unawareness, you're in denial about it, or you just have never been taught. I saw something a while back and just researching and talking about the subject, but we're not really taught to observe our minds and emotions, at least here in this society. Like it's you start talking about mindfulness and these things, and it's so taboo. But I think it's really the foundation of figuring out who you are and being able to trust yourself. And if you are in environments where you were never taught these things and you were taught the opposite, to never trust yourself because someone wanted to control you and keep you tethered to them, then it's a whole rebuilding process, and it doesn't happen overnight. And I think we can even get caught up in believing that, oh yeah, sure, that sounds so easy. And then you get hit right in the face when you go to actually apply this in life and go, wow, I know nothing, and man, I did it again.
Right. I mean, that's, I mean, how I would say some key things on how we just start building that in a practical situation, because I mean, this is a baby steps thing to start out. And I mean, I think one of those first big steps that is practical for people is just keeping small promises to yourself. You know,
Mhm.
just start tiny. You know, wake up when you say you're going to wake up. Finish what you start, you know. Start training your brain to trust you again. And that is so key right there, is retraining your brain to trust you again. And if, you know, how many how many people make a New Year's resolution and then get a couple weeks into it and it's like, yeah, that went out the window because like you almost get to a point where you know when you're fooling yourself with some of these things. And I think people go too big with it. They're like, oh, well, I'm going to give up this and give up that and go to the gym 5 times a week and do this and do that. And it's like these big, completely 180 life changes that realistically, without some crazy discipline, most people just can't do. So you're setting yourself up for failure from the start, and like start with something small and build up to that. Like waking up, if you're going to wake up a little earlier, don't say you're going to wake up 3 hours earlier than you normally do. People aren't just going to do that, but start something small that is obtainable and rebuild trust within yourself again.
Mhm. I think too, having someone trusted or a coach or a mentor or anyone in your life to help hold you accountable, because a lot of times we don't recognize these unconscious patterns. We'll sit there and believe the lies we tell ourselves because our body and our mind have this protective mechanism and these learned behaviors and patterns that take effort to break. And no, it doesn't happen overnight. And I'll be the first to tell you that I've been hit in the face so many times when it comes to thinking, oh, yeah, I got this. Everything's great. And then going, wow, I don't got this. And man, did I get ahead of myself. And it's great to attain knowledge and wisdom. But if you can't apply it, or maybe you miss something because you're trying to get past a certain point, because maybe it's very uncomfortable to feel like you are failing or feel like that you can't get something instead of just sitting there in it and being uncomfortable. And for me, it's like you have to sit and be willing to be uncomfortable and be willing to actually ask yourself, what is reality? And if you had a history of, childhood or trauma or bad things that have happened to you, you get into that state with survival mode. You're used to putting a mask on, or you were required to be perfect and to always pretend everything was okay. And don't you dare acknowledge the problems in this, you know, s- circle that you are in. Like, be it, you see it in like religious circles, family dynamics, political circles. Like, don't you dare acknowledge it. And you kind of train your brain to conform. And then over time, when you go to get out of that, well, you have a entire process to go through, and that process is extremely uncomfortable and is going to feel like the wrong thing because you've gotten so used to what you've been in for such a long time.
Yeah. I feel like to even start getting there, you have to have that radical honesty with yourself of looking at even the parts that you don't really want to and stop lying to yourself, because once you start being honest with yourself, you start, getting rid of the narratives, the victim narratives, and if you're going to start keeping those, start making those small promises to yourself, and you're honest with yourself, you'll be, oh, I'm going to start that Monday. Are you really going to start that Monday? The excuse of, oh, this is just kind of who I am. Is this really who you are, or are you choosing this because it's more comfortable? Like, have that radical honesty with yourself, and that actually creates power
Mhm,
to be able to dive into that. And I mean, being able to detach from an outcome
mhm,
really can help with this as well, because confidence starts to grow when you stop needing approval for things. If you show up, you do your best, and you accept that, and don't be like, oh, well, I have to be at this point. But you, in the moment, you are present and you are giving your 100%. And then what the results are is what the results are. And you can be content with that and proud of yourself with that. That's freedom, and you will build confidence in yourself with that.
And I think it's getting to a point where you don't have an easy way out. Like, if you always have somewhere to like go, like you create these own spaces in our heads or with people or whatnot to regulate yourself and to be able to find a way out. And as awful as it sounds, you need to be able to not have a way out and really go raw into reality and be able to sit there and go, okay, what is actually going on inside my head? I'm not my head. What is going on inside my head? And that's rough because a lot of times we want to skip XYZ and be out of this, right? Especially if you've been in something for such a long time and you feel like you made it, and just to figure out that you might have anticipated the end and it's actually the beginning. It's the beginning of what you need to focus on and work through. So there's just all kinds of avenues here, and having that ability to have real self-reflection and be able to be like, you know what, I don't got this. I need to figure it out and be honest with yourself about it instead of saying, oh, I got this. Everything's fine now, and wearing a mask again that you don't really necessarily want to put on, but it's on again because you're choosing survival and painting a picture that everything is okay instead of acknowledging, hey, this is actually not okay.
Right. And I think people confuse performance confidence with integrated confidence. And, this performance confidence thing, works on a stage or in the gym or on social media or even in business meetings and at that family get-togethers, and it's always in a performance. But what the goal should be is that integrated confidence, because integrated confidence, that's there when you're alone. That's there when you fail, when somebody criticizes you, when nobody's cheering you on. And that's such a big difference because that brings fulfillment, that brings peace. You're no longer And this kind of branches into, a self-hate thing. You're no longer hating yourself. You're no longer needing to distract yourself from who you are because you don't like who you are. You're not confident with who you are. And everybody's teaching this performance thing. And I mean, self-confidence is not believing you'll always win. And you have this, especially in the with men, and this almost like Andrew Tate type masculine confidence thing. Self-confidence is not believing you'll always win. You don't always win, but it's knowing that you can handle whatever happens because you trust yourself. You believe in yourself. And when you trust yourself to adapt, learn, and recover with whatever happened, fear no longer has power over you. And it becomes a really powerful tool, and it'll spill on to others as well. Other people will see that. Other people in your family, your children will be able to learn from that and see that example. It'll give them a boost in life from an early age instead of having to really unlearn what confidence is and relearn what real confidence is.
Well, I think we see it in our daughter and in our sons all the time. Octavia does not hesitate to trust herself when she says she knows what she wants, when she says no, when she's mad, when she says she doesn't want to eat the food. She's not sitting there going, well, maybe I want to, or maybe I do want this or nothing. No, it's just no, yes, no, I'm doing what I want. And it's interesting to see how if you don't lead your children down the right path, you're going to rob them of something that you have to relearn as an adult and you struggle in when your children have had it from day one, if they have supportive parents and an environment where they can grow and where there's guidance in that, but not crushing their confidence, not crushing their trust in themselves, not making them question who they are, just teaching and nurturing them along the way. So I just see Octavia all the time and I'm like, dang, she didn't think twice about that. And she's almost 3.
Right. Absolutely. That brings up a great point, how childhood trauma complicates confidence. Because if somebody grew up in chaos, criticism, emotional unpredictability, or really shame heavy environments, their nervous system equates visibility with danger. Like they can't, it's not, it's not safe to be seen. So being confident is then unsafe. And confidence isn't built by hype, it's built by safety and gradual exposure. So I mean that if you're what you think is confidence isn't really what true confidence is. You learn that it wasn't safe to be confident within yourself. And it's really difficult to, like I said, unlearn that, and being able to, if you see a child that isn't in that environment and is actually really confident in themselves, it's it's crazy. And like you bring up, our daughter, one of the most confident things I've ever seen with her, and I love it, is when she's wearing her princess dress, her
Uh-huh.
tiara, but has mud boots on at the same
And the
time,
cape. Don't forget
and
the cape.
yeah, and
There's a cape in there.
she'll have like a superhero cape on with a princess dress, and she's will literally have her head up high and she's strutting her stuff like a complete badass, and she's just like, I'm me and this is fine. I love this, and it makes me so happy to see. But I'm like, that's great. That is awesome. And
That's something they're caring what anyone thinks about her outfit and how confident she is. And, it's kind of, there's healthy self-reflection, but even in the state of awareness, self-reflection, you can find yourself overthinking and overanalyzing what that is. Like when you're sitting there in an email for 20 minutes, changing it, retyping it because you don't trust yourself instead of going, you know what am I doing? What is going on here? I just need to say what I need to say. And that's how you start building these little bits of self-confidence. Like for me, going to school built these little bit of self-confidence because only I could do my work, right? And if I didn't get it done right, I was going to hear it from the teacher. So that's where you have to go, okay, I can sit here and freeze and not write anything and cry and be in a mess because I don't know what to do. Or I can just go, you know what? I just have to try and I have to do this. And then when you succeed and you complete that, okay, I had this the whole time. And the reflection is, wow, I just need to trust myself. I got this. I know what I'm talking about. And that's life. That's part of growth. But we can get stuck inside our heads and be in denial and in all these spaces where we're looking for anything to make an excuse to not move on and stay in that space. And, I was reading Lewis Hayes' book again the past month, and one of the things he said is healing is found in the present. And when you've gone through a lot of things in life, and it doesn't matter what it is, I don't care if it was something insignificant or not, you'll find your mind when you start to change or things get uncomfortable, grasping at something in the past, even the good things, even a good memory to keep you from being present, to keep you from moving forward. And a lot of times you don't even have any idea that's happening, right? You're just sitting there, oh, yeah, this is what I think. And it's like, well, is that what you think? Or is that you holding on to something that feels safe? And we can't move on then, and we can't grow, and we can't change, and we can't get into a new pattern. And we keep repeating the damaging cycle over and over again.
Right. Well, I mean, the first step to fixing that or realizing you're lacking confidence is awareness. So like, I mean, some of the things that show up is like a more false confidence. People who are really loud, like they always are having to dominate conversations, they're always talking over people, and they can never receive feedback, constantly flexing on people, whether it be money, their body, their status, their connections, you know, everything. They're grabbing on everything that is proof, or people who are really defensive. If you're somebody who feels like criticism always feels like an attack, or questions, even being questioned is like, oh, I'm being disrespected, or having a disagreement with somebody is more like a betrayal thing. That's a sign of a big lack in self-confidence because your identity is unstable. Somebody who acts like they're morally or intellectually or even religiously superior, everything about your view is always right. You're never curious, you're never reflective, you know, if any of those things are like resonating with people, that's a sign that, whoa, maybe we need to shine a light on these, and why am I like this? Or am I
Mhm.
constantly focused on my image, always worried about how you look to other people, whether that
Right.
whether that be through pictures, or how you look emotionally, intellectually, and other people's opinions of you. If you're maybe avoidant, really avoidant of accountability, always making excuses, the blames, the deflections. I mean, these are all symptoms of lack of confidence within yourself, lack of identity within yourself. And, you go back to some of the points on things to really start building self-confidence. These things will start to fall off. These things will start to just not be a thing anymore because you'll be enough for yourself. You won't
Mhm.
need to get defensive if somebody questions who you are because you know who you are. You're confident in who you are again. And that
Mhm.
really changes the name of the game. And I think one of the big paradoxes with confidence, you know, you don't build confidence by trying to feel confident. You build
Mhm.
confidence by acting in alignment with your values, especially when you don't feel confident.
Mhm.
Your feelings follow evidence, which goes back to that whole trauma thing. If you were shown that your confidence is bad, that confidence is a bad thing, then
Mhm.
that's what your feelings are following. So that's part of that retraining. So like when you don't feel confident in anything that you're doing, but you have your values, the core of who you are, and you establish that and you act on that regardless of how you feel, boom, you just started learning how to trust yourself again.
Mhm. Yeah, and self-trust is, how you move on in life and how you actually can be on your own. And I don't mean that you shouldn't have relationships and want to have connection with people and family and etc. But all those things could be taken from you. And when they are taken from you or things don't go the way you thought they would or whatever, you're going to crumble apart. You could have everything down, they'll have all the tools, have all the books, and they get hit right in the face again. And that's an opportunity. Like all these things are an opportunity to go, okay, why am I here again? What do I need to see here? And, it's easy to have someone else tell you what they see and to help you because that feels safe. But in all honesty, you need to be able to sit with it and sit with it a while and go, okay, what's really going on? What am I thinking and processing? Why am I doing this? And why do I feel this way? Or maybe I haven't felt the things I need to feel right now. And I need to just accept that and be in it and feel it instead of trying to skip over it because it's so uncomfortable and painful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I feel like self-confidence isn't about just walking into a room like you own the place. It's
Mhm.
about being able to walk into your own inner world and your own landscape and not running from what you see and knowing your flaws and you're being aware of your patterns and choosing to work on them regardless. You're not doing it because you need validation from other people, but you're doing it because you are respecting yourself. Um, Confidence is really built in the moments nobody knows about, whether that's the early mornings where everybody else is asleep and you're deciding to, you know, go work out or have that journaling or that time that you're dedicating to for bettering yourself through hard conversations where maybe you bite your tongue when you need to and not give in to ego or a trigger through apologizing for stuff. So maybe it's setting boundaries, anything that you choose to grow over being comfortable and having to get to the point where you get comfortable with being uncomfortable, where being uncomfortable is part of an everyday, like being acceptant of that, accepting that, and then moving forward with that regardless.
And just actually the experience is right because you can read and say all these things to yourself, but you have to actually go through the experiences. And life is a teacher. Like nobody wants to go through things that challenge them or cause pain or sadness or loss or losing people in your life or the death of a loved one or just all the politics and the world and where the direction the world is. That's where you really get put to the test. It's not going to be put to the test by you sitting there and, feeling comfortable. You have to go out and actually experience things and then see what happens. Learn to trust yourself, learn to be able to go in and go, okay, I don't need someone to tell me what's wrong with me. I need to know what's going on with me. And I need to have the confidence to know that I've found out what direction I'm in, where my mind's at, why do I have these emotions, and not need someone else to tell me anymore because I've done the work and I've gotten to this point. Now I need to stop needing something, someone or something else and find all the answers within me because that's where they're at. Because nobody else can go inside of me. Nobody else can tell me what I think and feel when it comes to the real me. Now, don't get me wrong, there's people that can see through your patterns and go, hey, you don't have any boundaries. Do you realize that? And that's someone that like cares and someone's got a space to go, I care, I see a pattern. I want to point this out to you to help you. And having someone in your life like that's important, having people that actually care, people that want to see everybody grow and work together, That's why people like hire a naturopath like me because they want someone to help lead them into a lifestyle. But the point isn't for me to stay there with them and hold their hands the rest of their life. The point is to give them a foundation to go, hey, here's your baseline. Here's where you start. Let's learn together, and then you don't need me anymore. Now you know what the path forward is for you. Follow it, make it better, modify it, but now you have trust in yourself that you're making the right decisions for your health. That's so important, right? That's why, you have a world of all the internet advice and the medical doctors and the naturopaths and all these things. And you sit there and you go, well, I don't know what to do now. Having someone that said, you know what, I trust myself to now step up front and teach and show you a path forward. So trusting ourselves is how we help others also find that path forward. And if we don't trust ourselves, we can also steer people down a wrong path because it might not be coming from a place of stability. And that's really important.
No, absolutely. I mean, and when you start actually walking and start actually becoming confident in yourself, you'll start to recover faster from setbacks. You won't be spiraling after being criticized. You'll stop over explaining yourself. You can say no without feeling guilty. You can say you were wrong without feeling like your whole world is collapsing on you and you don't need everybody to agree with you. And that's,
Yeah.
like you said, that's infectious. Like, if people are also willing to, or any type of journey, self growth, self healing, any type of healing journey, people start to see that and be like, oh wow, like that's different. That's an energy about yourself. When you carry yourself like that, people will see it, and that will speak louder than anybody shouting, demanding respect or saying I'm confident, or all the talk. It's how you carry yourself, and those are just some signs that you're actually becoming confident within yourself.
Yeah. So, yeah, self-confidence is not something that, you can be confident in one area, but in another area you still need to do the work. And I think sometimes we get ahead of ourselves and we finally did it here, so it must be good all around. And then you get hit in the face by reality. And it's like, oh, well, okay. I can either sit here and pout and be upset that I missed this, or I can just decide to move on and keep going forward. And not going forward and spinning in circles. Actually do the self-reflection and discipline. I think that's a part we miss sometimes is it takes a lot of self-discipline and work. And I can tell you that your mind is like a minefield when you start doing this work. It's like I'm just on autopilot, and why am I thinking about that? Like, why did that just pop into my head? Why, let's just move on from that. Like, that's not true. And, when you start paying attention, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm exhausting myself. Like, why am I sitting here with all these thoughts? This is such a waste of my time. And, you end up spiraling, you end up in your emotions, you end up in the past, you end up scared of the future. And you're like, well, after it's all said and done, and then you're like, okay, well, that was a mess. How do we not do this again? Like, why are we doing this again? You know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's a big distinction there, because when being able to hold yourself accountable in that discipline, people confuse discipline with motivation. Discipline's there when it takes over when you're not motivated, and to your point, being confident, one thing doesn't mean you're just confident in everything in your life. You can be really good at having that self-confidence when it comes to working out, but when it comes to your eating, that's you can have a hard time with that. And that's that trust in yourself. If you trust yourself to get your butt out of bed in the morning and go work out, and you've built that and you trust yourself with that, that's fine. But if you have a repeated pattern of, okay, I'm not drinking soda anymore, I'm giving up soda. And then after a couple days, you're at the gas station and you're like, I grabbed a Polar Pop. You don't have that confidence in that area. And that's part of growing. That's part of, this journey of life is finding those things where oh, that's where I'm actually falling short in or betraying myself in and going, well, I'm going to work on this area and focus on this area and build that confidence in this area and use areas where you have done it, no matter how small, to give you that boost and build on it. I mean, something as simple as your job. Oh, and you started your job, you knew nothing. You weren't confident in your job. You were always leaning on your trainer and always asking 50,000 questions because you weren't sure what you were doing and you wanted to make sure you were doing it right. But after you start doing it for a while, you quit asking so many questions because you already knew. You quit leaning on the person who trained you because you know what, you can do it now yourself without any help. And just look at something like that and be like, wow, I am capable of this. So a lot of people don't think that they're capable of doing it.
Mhm.
There's you subconsciously or consciously start finding all these little things as evidence as to why you can't. Everything from your past, every little failure, what people have said about you, and you create this ginormous wall in front of you of, oh, this is the proof why I can't do this.
Mhm.
And that will keep you stuck in the same place until you decide to stop listening to that, stop looking for evidence as to why you can't, and start saying, no matter what the evidence tells me, I am going to. It's not I can or can't, it's what you're going to do. And if you stumble, if you fall, we've said it a couple times on this show, just make sure you fall forward and then get back up.
Mhm.
And that in and of itself will build confidence that, you know what, no matter what, that one time where I really screwed the pooch real bad, I dust myself off and kept on going. I didn't give up because the only failure is in giving up,
Mhm.
not in making mistakes. So I think that's a
I
really
think
important part of it.
the other part of why we lack self-confidence and question, overanalyze, and think is the fear of failing. So you don't send that email and you don't send that text message because now you're thinking about all these other things and why it's going to go wrong instead of being present in the moment. Because then your brain is referencing all these times, was this a good idea or not? And this happened or whatever, instead of just going, you know what, how do I respond to this right now? I know how to respond to this. Why am I sitting here overthinking this? This is how I would handle the situation. If you're learning to set boundaries, this is how I would handle the situation. I wouldn't sit here and question something over and over again unless I was afraid of the outcome. So afraid of failing, afraid of an outcome that maybe we already knew was coming or we didn't want to see happen, and you're holding on to maybe hope in the situation. And that's where you started losing your self-confidence because now it's being outsourced to an outcome or a situation or a person.
Right. Well, I think it's also really important to retrain our brain to not view failure as something negative. Failure is a learning experience. If
Mhm.
you learn something from it, then it's not even really a failure, right? It's something to build, retraining our brain to not view failure as a negative thing. Because if the reason you're not taking these steps is that fear of failure, whether it's, I don't want to, you know, my my ego, my self-image, my confidence can't take another hit. I can't say I'm going to go to the gym again, start going to the gym for a little while, and then just stop. I just can't do that again. I mentally can't do that again. Like, I get that. That is a really tough spot to be in. We said earlier
Yeah.
on, do a small thing, take it small, even if it's I'm going to go to the gym once a week. That's better than nothing, and build that up. And sometimes it's not even just that you can't do something, it's that you need to break a habit or another pattern in order to be able to do that again. So starting small and interrupting the cycle of your everyday life could have a big impact that you never thought it would.
Well, I mean, like as parents, like, well, we can't speak to anyone else's parenting, but we'll speak to ours. You know, I got our son that Kiwi Co subscription where him and Oliver get this mystery project every month, and I usually hand it to him. I'm like, okay, I'm here if you need me, but the goal is for you guys to be able to do this yourself. And I can tell you the past few times where, they didn't need me. They built a robot, they built a car, and they did the electrical stuff and followed the book. And their faces when they come running in the room to show us that, look, we did it. We didn't need your help. We can do this. We can build things like to where Oliver today's telling me, you know what? I think I want to build rockets someday. And like his confidence is just like, I can do this. So of course I can do that, Mom. I'm going to learn this. And, I love seeing that in them. And I feel like as parents, we underestimate the value of going, I'm here, but hey, I bet you got this. Here's a self-confidence building block. And I'm going to be here and be present and emotionally stable and, give you the space to actually grow and learn these lessons in life a lot sooner to where maybe when you're an adult, you're not going to sit here and question yourself. You're going to be like, oh no, I got this. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to figure this out. I trust myself to figure this out. And our kids talk about we have to learn to believe in ourselves and trust ourselves. And, if you look at the kids, I mean, they trust us 100% and they just know everything is going to be okay because mom and dad has got this and they can trust themselves because mom and dad lead by example. And I think that's a big part of it. We have to lead by example. When you don't have good examples, when you don't have parents or mentors that go, hey, look at me, watch what I'm doing, your kids are going to mirror that. And you can tell them all the things all you want, but they're going to watch what you're doing. So it's really important that we have ourselves together and that we actually focus on our growth and what we need to work on in our lives, or we're going to pass the bucket on to them.
Right? Well, and really think back to your own parents and be like, how much of how I view confidence in my life is based off of how they live theirs. Like, were you taught that to not do stuff out of failure and you might as well not even try? I mean, did you have a dream of, well, I want to build a rocket ship? And it's like, yeah, that's all well and good, but you need to go to a lot of schooling. Not everybody succeeds in that. You might get a job with NASA, but that doesn't mean you'll actually be able to do that. And, just immediately get discouraged because that dream's too big.
And we
Or,
really shouldn't be doing that with our children. We shouldn't, like, they don't need reality either. Like, this is like a big flaw in society where your kids
Mhm.
do not need to know the facts all the time. They don't need to have a reality check. No, you need to support their emotional well-being and their confidence. And then they
Mhm.
can figure out the real world with that foundation later. I see so many people get offended. Why does your kid not know about this and that? Well, they just don't need to. They need to be allowed to be kids. And they need to be allowed to build real self-confidence without the real world shattering, and they don't even understand how to process that. It's your job as parents to protect that and to build that and to not bring your own life experiences, as in like maybe your trauma, into the conversation with your young child, because that's selfish.
Yeah. No, I mean, why are people surprised that when you give them reality and people admit all the time that the world's tough, it's not, easy, bad things happen, and we instill this whole already like defeated mentality into our children and then wonder why they're struggling with feeling like failures and there's no hope and they can't do anything. Like you said, let them have that confidence. Let them think that they can become the president of the United States
And
or an
maybe they will,
astronaut.
you never know.
Right, but I will say none of the people that have really changed the world throughout history, even now, that have some of the biggest businesses and have the biggest innovations and really change how the world operates, can or is has a mindset of that. It's always, no, this is something I want to do and I'm going to hold myself to it and be confident with it no matter what anybody says. I mean, you can take, I know it's been an example that's been used so many times, but even like Bezos with Amazon, I mean, his company was not profitable and not making money for years, and people told him he was crazy. And he went, nope, I have a vision. This is something I know is going to work. And look what happened with it. Look at Elon Musk with Tesla. Look at SpaceX. Look at, all these different things. Look at the founding of America, where it's like, you guys, well, your idea with this is crazy. It's not going to work. You can't just do this. And look what happened because you had
Yeah.
people that had confidence within themselves
I'm
too.
gonna pick at you a little bit here, but I don't see Jeff Bezos as someone with real confidence, though. I see him as someone trying to prove and gain power. Sure, he might be confident in areas, but again, is that really out of self-trust and growth, or is it out of the need for power and compensation for lack in something in his life? Because he doesn't come across as a very genuine, authentic, kind person. He comes across as a very powerful, very elitist. So in that case, you can talk about that dynamic. Just because someone's successful and has all these things doesn't mean they actually trust themselves. It doesn't mean
That's,
they actually have authenticity. They could be compensating for lack of something in themselves in their lives. And that's why you see, some of these people where you're like, oh, wow, they're so successful. They must really have it together. And then you find out later they're in the Epstein files, for example. Oh, like there was some really famous spiritual teacher in there. Everybody was like freaking out about, and I'm like, he could say all the right things, but he obviously wasn't what everybody thought, right? He thinks it's okay to harm children in the worst way possible and thought he would never get maybe caught. And don't get me wrong, I'm not so sure anything will be done about it. But everybody looked up to this guy. Oh, he just knew and he wrote 27 books and this and that. He's just has taught so many people, but it's like, sure, he's successful and maybe you still gain something from him, but something deep down is super messed up and twisted. Even though he looks like he has all this confidence, maybe he has confidence in being absolutely dark.
I mean, well, that goes back to that whole thing we were talking about having self-confidence in one area and then lacking it in all these other areas. You can have somebody who was, Mr. Olympia and a bodybuilder and was confident in what he could accomplish with his body, but
Mhm.
would go fail at a business, because he's not confident in starting a business, or fail in relationships, or, fail at so many other things. So, you take like back to the example with Bezos, having confidence that he could make Amazon succeed doesn't even mean that he didn't have his own wounds, but I think that's a perfect example. A lot of these people who we put on pedestals of being what to
Mhm.
aspire to, everybody has their weaknesses. Everybody has their things that they're working through that, and don't take, like you said, don't take, just success as far as money or possessions as a sign of, oh, this person has got it. Obviously, there is maybe a tool or something that works with what they're doing, but that doesn't mean that the overall person, I mean, I would say, like you said, what Epstein files, there was a lot of financially successful people. Virtually
Mhm.
all of them were or financially successful people.
Their souls aren't very successful.
So
Some way
obviously
to put it.
there's some very twisted problems going on there, you know, trying to even go down that kind of dark path. So definitely don't think that financial success is a good roadmap for, oh, well, that person's got all kinds of confidence. Because, like you said, if if building confidence and going back to, we're talking about with false confidence, having to, prove something always, whether that's always being right or money or your body or your status, your followers and stuff like that, that again, that's part of that false confidence thing as well.
Well, and I would add to that, like you shouldn't put anyone on a pedestal. I'm so like you can have people that you go off of and go, oh, that's someone did these things, and I want to look into what they did, or I want to hear what they have to say and stuff. But if you put anyone on a pedestal, then by default, you're taking away self-confidence. Because now it's like, well, I need to follow someone. I need to reach out again. I can't find it within myself. I have to keep reaching out. And, I think that's a big trap is you have a lot of people that put, in politics, they put people on pedestals and then they can't see the truth about them because they have held them in such a high position. Then now they will make excuses for things that are definitely a problem and definitely a red flag because now you've outsourced everything. You're following, you're excusing. So this is where your self-confidence goes away because now it's, well, I put someone else on a pedestal, so that's what I depend on to have confidence. I have to get it externally instead of, okay, I need to be confident in who I am. I need to know who I am. And a lot of people don't know who they are. They don't even want to see who they are because who they are might be a big fat mess inside, and nobody wants to go through that. Okay, it doesn't feel good. It's not like, oh yeah, one day I decided to just do the work and find out who I am and look at all my problems and patterns and things that I've carried over and over again. No one's sitting there going, oh yay, this feels amazing. This is you
It's not
guys.
writing out your grocery list of things okay, I don't need this. Okay, I don't need that. I feel so
It's
much
like
better.
it's like, yeah, you'll have moments where you're like, oh, I got this. Okay, going in a good direction, and then wham. Okay, no, this does not feel good. This sucks.
Hmm.
Like, let's just have reality. This hurts. This is how do I move on from here? Okay, we're doing this again. Like nobody's going, yeah, it just feels great to go to the gym and my back and arms and my legs hurt. This is so amazing. I'm just so glad I hurt so bad today and I can't like get up without flinching, trying to breathe. Okay, we just worked out. And it's like, wow, that is great. I feel accomplished, but man, this hurts.
Yeah,
Why can't I just click my fingers and everything be perfect? Okay. I
right.
think that's what we actually tell ourselves we want. Oh, I'm just going to read a book, watch a seminar, talk to someone, and everything's just going to be great. Like bippity boppity boo, like Cinderella. No, it
Oh
doesn't
my
work that
God.
way.
Well, yeah, I think that's part of the mindset, and it's actually not with things like that. People go into it with trying, instead of learning tools to do the hard work, people go into that with the mindset of learning a shortcut to get where they want to be. And that's why you have all these people that are stuck in this perpetual cycle of doing a little bit and then falling right back in because they're constantly looking for that shortcut. They listen to all the people, they watch all the reels, they listen to the seminars, they read the books, and they're looking for that quick thing to get there, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't exist. There's no cheating your nervous system. There's no cheating those patterns that have taught you how the world works. You have to teach it something else, and that only happens through repetition. And that's what doing the work is teaching yourself this is the new baseline. This is our new existence. This is how we're going to perceive things now, no matter how we feel, and be rooted in reality. When you stop asking people, do they believe in me, and start asking yourself, do I believe in me? That's when the real work starts. Because when you trust yourself to fail and recover in that failure, when you trust yourself to feel and then regulate, and when you trust yourself that when you fall, you'll get back up, that fear loses its power. when you don't need to perform anymore, when you don't have to prove anything to anyone anymore, that's when you start to be grounded. My challenge to everybody is when you look in the mirror, don't ask yourself if you look confident. Ask yourself if you're living in alignment to your values. Ask yourself if you're honoring your values and if you're keeping your word to yourself. And that's where real confidence lives. Not in the image, it's in integrity. And, that's what it means to look in the mirror and start building self-confidence. And if your answer to any of those are no, why is it no? What are the situations that come to mind that say no? There you have your start. You have that baseline that you can just take one thing at a time. You're not going to do this overnight, but I promise you, once you conquer that first thing, and then that second thing, and that third thing, it's that snowball effect that starts growing and be like, wow, I actually got this. I actually can do this. It's the same story when you see somebody who's, 400 pounds and they have their transformation where they lose all that. It's like that, oh my gosh, where do I even start? It's so bad. You start by getting on the treadmill and taking your first 100 steps, and then you do another 100, and then you do another 100. Roadmap to building self-confidence again.
Mhm. Yep. And it doesn't happen by sitting there and feeling sorry for yourself or looking back and trying to figure out what happened in your past or what's going to happen in the future. Like I said, it's in the present. And no, that sounds simple, but it's not. You think it is, you have moments where it's like, oh yeah, this feels easy right now. But when it comes to the really hard stuff, the really deep stuff that we have going on inside us, it's not at all an easy place to be in or an easy situation to change. But it's worth changing, it's worth pursuing, it's worth transforming. But it takes discipline.
No, absolutely. Well, appreciate everybody tuning in this week. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And we will see you guys on the next episode.
See you next time. Thanks.